Thanks for watching this video. My name is Ryan, and I'm going to be addressing a question that's come up a few times in some recent Q&As I've done with students, but I didn't have those recorded, so now I'm going to address it here. And that is, how do I share the gospel with my friends that are maybe against Christianity? Now, I've addressed this a similar way in a video that I talked about how do you share Jesus with people who do not believe in God. And there are some similarities, but I want to go over a few more insights that I've shared with these students and I've learned since then. So the first thing is this: I am looking for inconsistencies within their worldview. Some people feel very strong within their view of the world, and it's until you kind of poke some holes, you put some stones in their shoes, you start to get them to think and realize their worldview doesn't answer all these questions very well, that they start to search for another one. So I'm going to be looking for things like objective morality. If someone says, that is wrong, I might ask, well, why? How do you understand this as being something that is wrong? If someone is talking about, I just love the beauty around me in creation, or they wouldn't call it creation, but in nature, and I might say, well, interesting, where do you think this all came from? Right, so I'm going to be looking for those ways that I can lead into some sort of spiritual conversation where they make statements about reality, where they say, that's a human right. When you can ask the question, where do rights come from? Because in a world without God, there are no human rights. There's only the rights that the government has granted us. And so if we're appealing to a human right, then that is an appeal to God, and that's only possible within a theistic worldview. So the more you learn about apologetics and worldview, the more you're going to start to see these sort of contradictions in what people say and what their view is. And so I'm going to be looking for these. Now you can also, second thing is be a little bit more bold and upfront. You can actually go and ask them questions. Hey, do you believe in maybe the Big Bang? Where do you think that all started? What do you think happens after you die? I'm just curious, what is your view on Jesus? And so you can kind of ask these more pointed questions, because I think most people have a view of Jesus. Most people have a view on the beginning of the universe, or at least they've understood or been taught Big Bang cosmology. Most people have thought about what happens when they die. And so this is one way to get into a spiritual conversation. And so maybe you just say, hey, I'm interviewing some people and kind of doing a little study to see what people think. Can you answer some questions for me? And then you can kind of get into that conversation. So that'd be a second thing. The third thing is, if you're a student, you can start to invite your friends to activities that maybe you're doing with your church, going out to the movies, maybe over to your parents' house for dinner one night. You start to just invite people over to where they're hanging out in a Christian fellowship, and they start to see Christians do Christian things, where they're praying before a meal, where they're having discussions about things that actually matter. And sometimes inviting them to church, they're going to reject that. But sometimes saying, hey, do you want to come over and have dinner with my family? Or do you want to go out to a movie with my friends? And just starting to get them in the fellowship with Christians might be a huge influence in them, when if you were just to say, do you want to come to church? They'll say no. So hopefully these are three things that you can put into practice of starting to look for those inconsistencies in their worldview, start to get them to think about things, maybe ask them some straightforward questions, or start to invite them and include them in activities inside of a Christian community. So hopefully those three things are helpful in you pursuing and having these sort of conversations with your non-Christian friends.